SUPERHOT's a series of super stylish shooters known to be some of the most innovative FPS games. So with the latest entry releasing a couple weeks ago, I wanted to take a look at the entire series. So were we wrong to keep asking for more? I don't know. Let's find out. So SUPERHOT's been around for a long time, starting in 2013 with a short browser prototype, then followed by 3 main entries and even a card game, which I'm not going to cover in this video. So the premise in every game is the exact same. You're put into a level with some bad red dudes, and you've got to kill them all to move on. You accomplish this using a variety of guns, melee weapons, or just any junk that you find lying around the levels. But the thing that sets this series apart from the others is the fact that time only moves when you move. Meaning you can live out your John Wick, Matrix, or just general Keanu Reeves dreams. It just makes you feel insanely powerful and cool dodging bullets while sending out your own to bust up these red scumbags. That's just sort of the tip of the iceberg, because you can also do things like shoot bullets out of the air with your own, cut them in half with a sword, or punch a dude to get him to drop his gun, then grab it out of the air and use it to kill his friend who hasn't had the chance to blink yet. It's so smooth and satisfying that it only makes sense for this series to be the massive success that it is. Another thing that's so great about it as well is just how simple it is. It's easy to pick up and play even as a non-gamer thanks to the time mechanic. It's visually easy to understand with these large blocky levels using a really minimal color palette of black, white, and red. Red's obviously reserved for bungholes, black for yourself and things you can interact with, and white's for everything else. It works so well allowing you to focus fully on executing your next moves instead of looking around the world trying to figure out what you can interact with. Beyond that, it's just incredibly striking, especially when bullets are flying around leaving trails in the air, and red guys are shattering into pieces like they're made out of glass. I honestly think the core gameplay in all these is incredible, and it's been enough to fully carry every game. And although the latest entry tried its best to ruin that, I still enjoyed all of them when I was actually able to be in a level with enemies. But the problem is that the developers have gone full Assassin's Creed with this series, and have this story thread running throughout all of them that I just can't stand. Essentially in the game, SUPERHOT is a software that the user plays and it engulfs that person's whole being till they willingly join their mind with the software and destroy their physical body. And I mean, sure, whatever, it's really great stuff and it's great these guys wanted a story. But it's like they don't actually want you to be having too much fun at once and constantly pull you out of the actual game to sit through some junk before letting you play again. And they try to make you feel like SUPERHOT's taken over your own mind just because you want to play the game. Or they'll try to make you question who's in control after you follow their direct orders. Let me tell you this. If there's any game that makes me take a reflective look at myself and question the nature of free will, it's not going to be this one.
Yes!
I mean, I'm just here to steal stuff and kill dudes in a cool time period. Nope, that's the wrong one. I'm just here to shoot red guys in slow motion, and anything that isn't that just does not interest me. It started out not so bad at first, but by the latest release, it's like the developers have completely lost touch with what people like about the series. I think perhaps from spending too many years swimming around in their super hot money and sniffing on their own farts. But I'll touch more on specific examples for each game. And so with that, let's take a look at the project that started it all. The original SUPERHOT Prototype was made for a 7-day game jam back in 2013, and it was expanded into a web browser game. It plays pretty much like all the other entries, except you can't throw your gun or pick up any items other than a pistol. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's already looking pretty fly, and these red guys are making up for their lame, smooth bods with their cool guy shades. So instead of breaking apart, these guys have a simple dissolve shader which is applied to their ragdoll bodies. In this rendition, these guys also bleed profusely when shot. Like you do. But I'm glad they removed it for the full launch, because the shatter effect with sparkling particles is just way cooler in every way. And these guys also just kind of have a strange look about them. Like their shooting animation was done by a man who'd never actually seen a human being aim or shoot a gun. It's like they all put this gangster turn on their guns, while at the same time physically pushing it from behind. I don't know, to stabilize it or something. And I guess there really isn't much more to say about this game. It's only 5 really short levels, but I still remember playing it back in the day and being blown away by how cool it was. It doesn't really hold up against the new entries, but as a reminder of its humble roots, I really appreciate it, and it's great how easily you can find and play it right from the SUPERHOT website. If you haven't played this one, it's definitely worth loading up for a 10-minute throwback to a simpler time.
Stop! You've been a good boy. Super hot, super hot, super hot, super hot, super hot.
So less than 3 years and one insanely successful Kickstarter later, a full version of SUPERHOT was released and improved on the idea in just about every single way. So the premise of this game is that you're some guy whose friend sends him a raw executable which you run without question. Because when's that ever been a bad idea? But bad news for all the Nigerian princes sliding into your DMs, because this SUPERHOT executable is the real deal. And from this point on, it's going to start consuming your every thought. So each time you run the executable, you get put into the game and get to play a few levels before being pulled back to the terminal again. Although outside of a few moments, like where the game forces you to completely restart your client to continue, this one's pretty good about getting you back into the action pretty quick. But it also works because it's telling a progressing story that you're actually involved in. I mean, it's not a masterpiece of science fiction, and I wouldn't say it left me satisfied or even content, but it's a harmless vehicle for some awesome gameplay. I mean, the actual gameplay in this one is just so dang good, with each level being a unique scenario which just keep escalating over the course of the 3-hour campaign. What really works here is that your spawn and all the enemy spawns are always the same. I mean, sure, the weapons change around a little bit, but with a little quick thinking you can start getting these levels down, and over time you start relying less on slow motion and break through into a whole nother level of this game. And the developers did an amazing job accounting for this by adding in so many different challenge modes which allow you to play through all the levels without any of the story stuff putting a stop to your fun. These challenge modes span from katana only to a hardcore mode which lets you only shoot every gun once, or 2 different speedrun modes. And I mean, back in the day, I used to casually speedrun this game, and I had so much fun with all of these. Since most of these use in-game time, as in the timer speeds up only when you move, it's the kind of thing that you can spend hours in trying to get the perfect run and cut off as many milliseconds as possible. It just gives SUPERHOT a ton of replayability, and in my opinion makes this game a full package that should be in just about everyone's library. I also loved that there's no invisible walls in the game, so if you decide to ignore everyone and go check out areas of the map you normally don't see, you surprisingly don't get a bop on the nose like you expect. Instead, just about every map has a secret terminal out of the normal level bounds, which are a ton of fun to discover and reach using some hot movement. And outside the main game, for anyone interested in it, there are all these weird mini applications which can be accessed from the main menu. And I think there's still a buttload of these things I haven't even found yet. And I mean, not all of them are winners, like these sine wave graph ones, but I think it's cool that someone spent so much time creating all these old school ASCII applications. So yeah, overall SUPERHOT 2016 is really good. But now let's move on to what I think is probably the best entry in the series, SUPERHOT VR. So the core gameplay is similar, except instead of having each level being a unique map, we get a series of 4 or 5 mini levels taking place on a single one. Each segment sees you spawning in at a specific place on the map, again with all the enemy spawns being the same each time. The big difference is that now you can't move freely around, and are usually planted in a spot with some weapons and cover to maneuver around right in front of you. And it's honestly so hard to explain how amazing this all feels and looks in VR. Like, I've loved VR for a long time and played a lot of other VR shooters like Arizona Sunshine or Boneworks, but I think SUPERHOT VR is maybe the best shooter experience I've had just because it makes you feel so damn cool. And I'm sure my wife would tell you I look like a complete asshole ducking around and giving out straight devastating punches to these red guys, and sometimes some of our cabinets. But that's alright, because in my mind, I'm just looking so smooth. And I think that's what this game does right, is it puts you under constant pressure with almost every enemy running at you with a weapon, or bullets flying straight at your face, but then it gives you all these tools to get out of it in just super cool ways. So of course you can physically move your body to avoid these things, or you can take a blade in your hands and slice up any bullets headed your way, or even slap those things right out of the air with your guns. And honestly, I think the only complaint I have is that the throwing just feels a little off. Like, I wasn't able to figure it out throughout the hour-and-a-half long campaign, and usually anything I would throw would just flop to the floor or completely sail away from where I thought I was throwing it. I'm not exactly sure what's up, because the throwing in Half-Life Alyx felt perfect, so it's not like it can't be done right, and I suspect it has something to do with the time manipulation. And I really wish this felt a bit better because the game gives you so many opportunities to snipe guys with your projectiles, but all that ever did was take me out of my fantasy by making me face the reality of my baby-level arm strength. Although baby arms are not, just remember that sometimes strength isn't half as important as technique. And now they're not going to show you this one in CQC class, but I'm going to go ahead and show you my signature move. So as you can plainly see, by vibrating the knife faster than humanly possible, you can actually destroy a man on a cellular level. And I can't be sure, but I have to assume causing a loaded pair of pants.
That didn't work. Anyways, I'm gonna get going, so
now going back to the main campaign. Like I said, it's pretty short, and it's even a little inflated by requiring you to beat all the segments in a level without dying. So if you die, you start over from the first segment, but since most of these levels are short and fun enough, I didn't mind replaying them at all. I think this game also has the best use of the SUPERHOT software plotline. You play some sort of hacker man, and each time you load up the new version of SUPERHOT, you pull on a headset which will then pop off when you complete the section. And I think it's a really great idea, and I love the feeling of nested virtual realities. The plot's also mostly unobtrusive this time around. Instead of forcing its message on you for minutes on end, it just lets you play, and I really appreciate that. And like the 2016 SUPERHOT, you also unlock a number of challenge modes along with an endless wave mode. Again, it makes the game really replayable and pretty much lets you get as much SUPERHOT VR as you want. Honestly, I think the worst thing I can say about this one is that the headset was a total nightmare to have strapped onto my face during the middle of the summer with only one single dinky fan in the room.
it's so damn hot.
VR.
If you have a headset, this one is absolutely a no-brainer. Pick it up. It's the pinnacle of the SUPERHOT series and one of the best VR games out there. One I've gone back to multiple times even after fully completing it. I even goofed my footage and didn't record audio, so I had to replay the whole game a second time for the video, and I wasn't even mad. And if you don't already have a headset, I'd say to you that VR is the future. And if you don't have enough money for a headset, well, then I'm going to go ahead and pour one out for you in my virtual living room. So now moving on to the latest game in the SUPERHOT series, Mind Control Delete. Now I'm just going to come out and say, I really didn't like this one. So I guess they're trying to make like a meta game that makes a commentary about how gamers are like addicts and just want more and more. But that doesn't mean anything to me, because of course I wanted more. I owned the game. You know, the one that I presumably bought to play. Just let me play it. Like for example, there's this one section you play through a few different times, and every time you visit, it gets worse and worse to get through. First teleporting you backwards to walk the same sections, and then later it slows you down more and more with every step you take, until you're moving so slow that your movements become imperceptible.
So slow.
It's such masturbatory stuff here that it could have been toned down a bit and would have just been a minor inconvenience, but the devs just take everything to the extremes in Mind Control Delete. They even had enough community backlash that they had to patch the final puzzle, time-wasty thing in the game. I'm honestly not even sure what to call it. It's like the most pretentious art installation that's forced upon you if you actually want to play the game. So this one comes at the very end, and after playing enough you come to this glitchy area where you can't play in any way that you might want. And the only way to fix it is either to completely delete your save or wait 2.5 hours in real time for it to recover fake files. And that's post-patch. This thing used to take a whole 8 hours. And if that isn't the worst case of asshole design, I don't know what is. I mean, the whole thing just frustrated me so much that it retroactively soured me on any of this stuff in every single SUPERHOT game. And I said it earlier, but I'll say it again, no one's playing SUPERHOT for this. I just want more well-crafted levels and set pieces to play around in with the core mechanics, and that's it. Although I guess that isn't quite true, as they somehow found a way to make playing SUPERHOT a bit like a tedious chore. And that's a bit hard to say because the gameplay in this one improves on the original, delivering a more complex experience with plenty of new elements, like immune body parts, explodey dudes which kind of remind me of those spiky dudes from Resident Evil 4, or these invincible buttholes which can spawn in and completely wreck up your day. But in what I like to call an interesting decision, the developers turned SUPERHOT into a roguelike experience. There's this new overworld map, which contains all these nodes which you need to complete to unlock new paths and find the exit, which moves you down a level. But every node plays out the exact same. You choose an ability, which are called cores here, which you then use to complete a series of levels randomly picked from the overall pool of maps. And then after a certain number of levels completed, you get to choose between 2 different minor upgrades, which can be something general like starting with a katana, or your guns reload on kill, or they can be specific to the ability you chose at the start. And I've got to say, these can be a ton of fun, completely changing how you're going to be playing. Want to be a katana-wielding Jedi that can throw and recall your sword through a huge group of dudes? Yep, you can do it. Want to be able to teleport all over the map while leaving behind exploding corpses? Sure, why not? Want to start with 3 hearts instead of 2 while giving up any abilities, but making the game easier on yourself? Well then get the hell out of here, because we're done. Now sure, these cores are great, but what I really hate about the structure of Mind Control Delete is it doesn't have the same payoff as any other roguelikes. You don't get to enjoy how powerful you're getting, because by the time you get super buff, you only have a few levels left to enjoy it, and then you're right back to square one starting in the next node. After doing this over and over, although while seeing the same maps, I just started to feel pretty burnt out on the gameplay loop. There are a few different modes which you come across on the map which do let you play for as long as you want, basking in your completely overpowered glory, and I enjoy these a bit more than the standard levels, but considering that just the main game might take you 5 or 6 hours to get through, I didn't end up coming back and spending much time on these. I also wanted to briefly mention these weird visuals that the developers put in. So later in the game you start seeing these levels that mess with your depth of field and warp the entire level while you move around. And I've got to say I absolutely hated it. And I usually don't get motion sickness playing games, but something about this was really getting to me. So if you have any problems with stuff like that, maybe just stick to the original 2016 SUPERHOT. So I guess to sum up my feelings on Mind Control Delete, it is a more version of SUPERHOT, for better or worse. There are more weapons, items, levels, gameplay improvements, but those things come in a package which pretty consistently got in the way of me just being able to enjoy them. And I mean, sure, I didn't actually buy this one, since they gave it to mostly everyone for free, but some people are going to pay $25 for this thing, and that's just outrageous. It feels a lot less like a real entry in the series, and instead like something that should have been a fairly small DLC. And I mean, if you are a fan of the SUPERHOT series, there is quite a bit of fun to be had in Mind Control Delete. but just don't go into this one expecting it to be more than it is. So overall, I've got to say that I have a ton of love for the SUPERHOT franchise, and have for years. Before Mind Control Delete, I would have never dreamed of a world in which I wasn't excited for the continuation of the series, and it's just so disappointing that with one single game it's happened. The good news though is we got 2 excellent ones before it, and I think those 2 easily cement this series as one of the most innovative and important in the FPS genre. If you haven't played any of these, be a good dog. Go pick up SUPERHOT and its VR follow-up.
You've been a good